In other words, for a lot of people, it's not as natural to put someone else and put their team members ahead of themselves. Like some people need help with that. Like how do I do that? How do I put my team members ahead of myself? Like how do I really put their goals as more important than my own goals? And trust in the fact that by doing that, it's going to help me be even more successful as a leader or manager than I've ever experienced, which is actually what happens. It's like the more value you create for your team members, the better the environment, the stronger the environment you create for your team members to be successful. Guess what happens for you? You become so much more successful and respected and trusted and loved, and you become the one that everybody brags about that they want to work for. And in your mind, you're going, you don't work for me, we work together. We work with each other. And so that's why the expectations have changed. And so we want to focus most of our attention for the rest of the afternoon on, like, how do we get better at that? How do we get better at those right-hand things, those right-side things? So I want to share with you, here's what I just took. I took a few captions from lots of different people that talk about leadership, okay? Because here's what we want to set the stage for is the expectations are high. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like the expectations are really high on you? Like the responsibility is there and you feel it? Yeah, because guess what? When you become a leader, you might be given some goals. Maybe you have some say in your goals even. There's metrics that are put out that you're supposed to hit. But when you become a leader, it's no longer someone saying, look, here's all the things and all the steps you need to do to get to that goal and reach that goal. When you become a leader or manager, it's like, no, here's the vision. You create the plan. And by the way, then you go ahead and tell your team what they need to do to help reach that goal. And so it shifts and it changes. And so here's some things I wrote down. You can capture any of these that you want. But you talk about the expectations being high. I mean, just listen through some of these. So first, let me share one. Of course, I got to start with a sports one for those of you that know me, but it's from Phil Jackson. He's won a lot of championships. And so one of the things that he uses as his principle in leadership all the time with every team he ever coached was this: focus on the spirit of your team, not the scoreboard. Focus on the spirit of your team, not the scoreboard. What does that mean when you think of the spirit of a team? Like, if you're paying attention to the spirit of your team, what are you probably paying attention to? What do you think? Okay, how they support each other. Yeah, thanks, Laverne. How they support each other. Their culture. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, no, but their culture, their camaraderie, though. You touched on that, Jason. Their camaraderie, right? Yeah. What else do you think, if you're paying attention to the spirit of your team, like what do you think of when you think of like the spirit of your team? The morale. Their morale. Yeah, thanks, Josh. What else? Positive energy. Yep, thanks, Zach. How committed they are. Appreciate that, Eric. Yeah. Their effort. Yep. And so as leaders, if we're paying attention to the spirit of the team, the way that you can identify that spirit, because these aren't things people talk about on a regular basis, are they? Like, they're not going to come out and say, guess what, I'm not feeling real committed today. Right? They usually don't tell you that. You're expected to see it and recognize it. Well, you're only going to see it and recognize it if you know your team really well. You only get to know your team really well if you're focused on these things on the right-hand side and you interact with them on a regular basis. Then you can see minor adjustments. You can say, man, there seems like there's just a little something off with that person today. Like, if I can brag on Michaela a little bit, Michaela will usually know what kind of day I'm having, even if a lot of other people have no idea what kind of day I'm having, because she knows me that well. And I know her that well, and others on our team, like with Haley. If you know your team well, you can pay attention to the spirit rather than just the scoreboard. Every single moment of every day. Here's another one. So a new Disney movie just came out. I know a lot of you are surprised by that, but the new movie Wish just came out. I have 3 girls and 1 son. So I have seen more Disney movies than I ever like to admit in front of a public group, including the one that just came out that we had to go to like the day after it came out, which is when everyone else wants to go to that movie. But the movie Wish, what's that?
I took my kids to it also.
All right, I know. It's just what you do. So But there was a line in there that caught my attention about leadership, and it was this: through the heart, we understand the world. Through the heart, we understand the world. That one's pretty deep, so I'm not going to ask you to disclose that one in this room. We probably don't have enough time for that. But I'm glad to see some of you writing it down, because I bet if you think about that one for a little while, you'll see just how much leadership principle is built into that and how telling it is. Through the heart, we understand the world. Brene Brown. Any Brene Brown fans? Dare to Lead? She's a rock star, isn't she? Yeah, she also pushes people really hard to do uncomfortable things. You ever notice that? Like, her book, Dare to Lead, is literally about vulnerability. How many of you would love to step in a room and just say, hey, let's talk about vulnerability today? Like, that takes a little bit of push. You got to have a little edge to be able to do that. But the reality is, as leaders, we are expected to be vulnerable. We are expected to be vulnerable in a way that's courageous. In other words, you know what? If we mess up, we need to let our team know that we messed up. We say, you know what? I really feel like I could have done that differently. And I'm going to continue to work on it too. Do you know what kind of trust and bond that builds in a team when a leader's willing to go, you know what? I realized I could have done that differently. In fact, you know what? I was having a rough day. I walked into our conversation and I just didn't have quite the right mental state that I should have had. And I want you to know that I care about you. And the next time we have a one-on-one visit, I'm going to make sure I come in. I'm going to come in strong. I'm going to come in ready. And that was a moment for me. How many of you would appreciate a leader like that? Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek, you know how he describes being a leader? It means when something goes wrong, you're willing to accept all the responsibility. When something goes wrong, you're willing to accept all the responsibility. And when something goes right, you're willing to give away all the credit. That means that when you accept the opportunity to be a leader or a manager, when it comes to your team and something goes wrong and you're getting questioned by someone else who's senior to you, you accept the responsibility and you go, know what? That was on me. Here's some things that I believe we could do differently. But when something goes really, really well, you turn and you go, you know what? Our team made that happen. You got to be bold to do stuff like that. You got to have a lot of trust to be able to do something like that. Because that means you're trusting in the fact that you're going to continue to succeed and that whoever you're reporting that to is going to see that in you, that they're going to go, you know what? That's a good leader, because they're willing to stand up for their team. They're willing to take the hit for their team, and then they're willing to give away the credit when it goes right. Now, you know what that doesn't mean? It doesn't mean that you diminish your role in making that happen. You can still, in a very humble way, accept when things go right as, you know what? I had a part of that. If I didn't create the environment, then it may not have gone that way. So in no way is what Simon Sinek's saying, or even what I'm sharing, mean that you diminish your part, your contribution to whatever that success was. Does that make sense? Like I said, it's okay to have fun. It's okay to brag about yourself every now and then. Just do it with people you trust that kind of know who you are and that are going to be open to letting you do that, right? All of you are very, very strong people, very strong individuals, very strong leaders.